And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking sprint qualifying is now in the very much history books. And it was Lando Norris that ended up getting that pole position. McLaren, to be fair, have been looking good all weekend. But what on earth happened to Max Verstappen? What on earth, though? The other big question happened to the Ferrari. Oh dear. So we're going to go through our winners and losers of qualifying as usual, etc. Although, albeit this is sprint qualifying. But congratulations to Lando Norris at P1. We talk about sprint qualifying in a bit because this was the car performance that Sky had up since the from Bahrain to Mexico. And it shows that the Red Bull and the McLaren are pretty much even on car performance, which is interesting. The Mercedes just very, very close, 0.08 down. The Ferrari 0.18 down. Williams 0.21 down. And the Racing Bulls are not, in the negative, in the red, so to speak. But the most interesting thing coming out of this was the McLaren and Red Bull Racing on an even keel, which I thought was eyebrow raising. Having said that, the big but is, where is Yuki Tsunoda and all that? Because that is Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, not Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull, because it would be all the way down at Alpine's level, I think. Or maybe that's a bit harsh. Maybe just above. But there we go. So this was practice 1, P1, that gave us our first indication that McLaren aren't looking too bad. Now, Max Verstappen didn't get the best lap out there, I get it. Nor did Lewis Hamilton, but both of Ferrari's 18th and 19th. Yuki Tsunoda 20th. Now, Oscar Piastri was second, behind Lando, but we're talking hundreds. And to be fair, in that first practice session, Oscar Piastri looked better and more comfortable than Lando Norris, even though Lando Norris pretty much pipped him at the end. Then it was Nico Hülkenberg and Fernando Alonso. Yeah, the Aston Martin going quite well. I know, Lance Stroll all the way down to 15th. There's a but here, and I may have to eat some humble pie. Gabriele Bortoleto 5th in his home Grand Prix, which is not bad. But then once again, this is only practice. And essentially the top 14 covered by a second. And it was McLaren very much, let's be honest, that had the advantage of a 0.6 of a second. Not as big, though, I don't think, in Sprint Quali, but we'll get into that. Because at the moment, I don't have any time for Sprint Quali, which is really frustrating. But anyway, we've got McLaren, Sector 1, Sector 2, Sector 3, the ideal lap. They completely dominated, as you can see here. Dominated in practice. Ferrari really at the back. The problem with practice, as we all know, is how good or how much do you have your engine turned up? How hard are you really trying? There are always massive question marks about that. So, yeah, absolutely get it. Now, let's move on quickly then to the 2026 driver lineup. In McLaren, we've got Norris and Piastri, Ferrari, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, question mark, who's his teammate? Tsunoda, Lawson, Hadjar, someone else, Lindblad, Russell and Antonelli are at Mercedes. Alonso and Stroll, confirmed for Aston Martin. Gasly, Colapinto, confirmed today. Yep. Behrman and Ocon for Haas. Racing Bulls, no idea. Albon and Sainz for Williams. Hülkenberg and Bortoleto for Audi next year. And also, speaking of new teams, Bottas and Perez for Cadillac. So it's quite an interesting lineup. The big question mark, obviously, being the Racing Bulls. So we are at Brazil. And the most special race of my career, I think one of Lewis Hamilton's best races, along, I think, with 2008, the British Grand Prix. And also, I want to throw out there, 2014, it was just those two though, the duel in the desert at Bahrain with Nico Rosberg. But this, I think, was, this or 2008 at Silverstone were his best races. He qualified pole position, disqualified from qualifying by the millimetres infringement on his DRS. P5 makes up 15 places in the sprint. In the dry, no wet shenanigans here. P10 given a 5-place grid penalty. P1 wins the race. And I think on the current grid, yes, I am including Max Verstappen's Brazil 2024, which was absolutely epic. I think this just about trumps it, though. And maybe we'll do an episode on why this absolutely trumps it. Comment below. Let me know if you are infuriated by that. Also, sticking with the Lewis Hamilton theme, he has come out and said, I don't know if they're aware of the weight of their decisions. And he's talking about the steward. He said they ultimately steer careers and can decide the results of championships, as you've seen in the past. Burn. Anyone thinking about Abu Dhabi? But I think he's got a point. Because the only consistent thing about the stewards is the inconsistency. because they're not. Now, they've tried to write these racing rules, which is absolutely, I've always said, ridiculous. It's going to be the first to the apex. Well, the problem is, if you don't brake, you're always going to be the first to the apex. Ergo, you win. Yeah, I know. It's a bit more nuanced than that. But that's how it feels sometimes. And I think you need to take each occasion on its own merit. Is that inconsistent? Maybe. But at least then I think the majority of people will be with you. And as long as I think you put why you've done it, and this is the big thing. Some people are like, the explanations, they have tried, they're doing better, and not always great. And I think therein lies one of the issues. So talking about the weather at the weekend, Friday we've just had, Saturday and Sunday, moderate to high chance of wet and windy conditions, in particular the Sprint Saturday, and in particular the sprint race is most likely to be wet. Max Verstappen fans rejoice, I imagine. This came out as well just before we started recording. Brazil's National Institute of Meteorology has warned of a cyclone forming in the south of the country this evening. A cyclone! The Sao Paulo area could experience 30 to 60 millimetres of rain in the next 24 hours. Very wet, while wind speeds could reach up to 100 kilometres. Imagine that. I think this is I think, what is it, 2023 qualifying? Do you know how dark it got? You needed lights. Let's talk about McLaren. So McLaren team orders. Oscar Piastri has come out and said, we can stand up for ourselves, and I feel very comfortable doing that. Completely agree. I think McLaren have ultimately, overall, been fair with the drivers. The Monza thing, I appreciate it. I've given my opinion on that. But Oscar Piastri has come out and said, I think for me, we're always very open with each other in terms of what we think. I respect the team allowing us to fight for both. You know, both of us to fight for the Drivers' Championships. Very good. He said, I think for myself, I want to go out there and try and win the championship, knowing that I did it on my own merit and doing things that I could in my own control. Agreed. He says, and obviously, if you pick one driver, you've got a 50% chance that you're not going to be that driver. Indeed. So I think for me, we're very much encouraged and welcomed to stand up for ourselves. So I don't think anything needs to change. Yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. And that's been a big issue in relation to this championship pretty much all year long. Swings and roundabouts as you look at both drivers. Lando seems to have the edge at the moment. Will Piastri get it back? I'm sure he will. Will it be enough time? So sadly, I don't have the qualification times, which is really frustrating. This is currently your grid with the caveat that some people are being investigated. For example, Lewis Hamilton. But it's Lando Norris in pole. Antonelli second, well done, fantastic. Piastri in third, Russell in fourth, not bad. But Alonso in fifth, I mean, that was an exclamation mark there. Verstappen in sixth, Lance Stroll, can you believe it? Well done, humble pie, yum, yum, yum. Lance Stroll in seventh, Leclerc eighth, Hadjar ninth, Hulkenberg just making it into that top 10. Lewis Hamilton 11th. Not all his fault, I think. He's got a certain Ferrari driver to blame for that. We'll get into that. 12th is Alex Albon. 13th, Gasly. 14th, Bortoletto. 15th, Behrman. 16th, Colapinto, not bad. 17th, Lawson. 18th, Sonoda. 19th, Ocon. And 20th, last but no means least, and he's not feeling very well, so is the Carlos Sainz. Now, one of the reasons Max Verstappen had a few issues, he said the car is completely broken. It's just undrivable. And that was through Sprint Quali, not sadly practice where they can change it. The plus point is it's going to rain at Sprint Quali, which is good. Also, for Max, I believe it will be. Having said that, Lando and Piastri are no slouches in the wet. Also, after the sprint race, which is on Saturday, you can change your car, albeit there's no practice sessions in between. I always think they should have a half an hour practice session in between Sprint Quali and into the sprint race, and actual qualifying. But another massive congratulations to Kimi Antonelli, a front row start. Brilliant. Can he win the sprint? If he gets a better start than Lando, maybe? Who knows? If you remember, Lando's got a world championship to win. Kimi does not. And that's the big difference there between the two. But let us talk about the absolute shenanigans that was Ferrari. I mean, both Leclerc spin, Hamilton out on SQ2. Leclerc spun in front of Hamilton. Hamilton, did he or did he not slow down? It obviously did affect him. He was not on a run though. But ultimately, Hamilton didn't even make it to the checkered flag to start his next lap, where he may have got into the top 10. Both of them were nearly out of that. Leclerc obviously made it in. The spin helped because some people couldn't get their laps in. It was just like, yeah. I mean, absolute clowns, the Ferrari. Yeah. Famous photographer even came out saying it wasn't the session either would have hoped for this afternoon. A spin for Charles Leclerc in SQ2 meant Lewis Hamilton couldn't cross the line in time to start his flying lap, leaving him P11 on the grid. Things didn't get much better for Charles as he'll start tomorrow from P8. Yeah, embarrassing after what was quite a promising race in Mexico. It's like, what happened? Here we go. The alleged breach that's currently being investigated. By the time you listen to this, it may well be that poor Lewis Hamilton does indeed have a penalty. 3 places or 5, I imagine. But the alleged breach of Appendix H, basically he didn't slow down under yellow flags because his teammate spun. I mean, how about that shooting? I mean, that's like friendly fire in a Call of Duty match. It's not good at all. So there's the data from sprint qualifying. Sector 1, Verstappen was absolute king. But then you had Norris king in Sector 2 and Sector 3. To be fair, Alonso and Russell were getting close. But it was also Norris's, as you can see. It was Lando Norris's Sector 1 that was very much saving him. And when you look at Verstappen, Sector 1 was amazing. But then you're looking, he's about 4/10 down in Sector 2. And then he gains again in Sector 3, which makes me think McLaren have put a bit more downforce on. And Verstappen is really fast in a straight line. If he can qualify well for the race, he's going to be hard to pass. He's going to be hard to pass, but he will find passing easy as long as he can keep it together in that Sector 2. The difficulty is, if that race, if he keeps this setup, he had it, if you remember, very much for Spa. There's this high-speed setup, I believe, and Silverstone. The problem is, in that middle sector, with that less downforce, he's going to slide. Now, if it's not a wet race, that's really going to affect him because that could potentially heat the tyres and destroy them if he's sliding in that middle. But we'll see. They may well change it for the actual race or the actual qualifying session. So top speeds, again, Verstappen really fast, 332. Russell on 333. This is kilometres we're talking about. Tsunoda on 329. When we look at McLaren, they're not too bad, to be fair, in top speed, 332 and 330. So Piastri matching Verstappen, but when you actually look at the sector times, it's almost, Verstappen, Piastri's a good, 10th down in Sector 1. He's about 10th down in Sector 2, and Sector 3, 10th down in Sector 3-ish. So there we go. And last but not least, let's look at the optimal laps. This is taking all into account. McLaren is fastest. What is interesting is Aston Martin, on their ideal laps, when you look at both their drivers, are 109.240, which is only 0.2 slower than McLaren, and is indeed Mercedes by hundredths that are going to be in third. Red Bull, understandably, fourth, about just shy of half second down, along with Racing Bulls, only 0.02 off the Red Bull. Kick Sauer, half second off Ferrari, the 7th fastest car. That is absolutely embarrassing. Williams, about 7/10 down. Alpine, 7.5 down. And Haas, about 7/10 down. What's good, though, all the ideal laps are within a second of each other. So that bodes well for the rest of the season and being competitive. What it doesn't bode well for is they're still going to be thrown up in the air, isn't it, come next year? Yeah, that's going to suck with the new rules. So let's now get into the driver ratings for sprint qualifying. We're going to be doing this at least 3 times this weekend. So this is the first one. This is the sprint qualifying driver ratings. Last but no means least, it's not really his fault because he's a sick man. I mean, not in the head or anything like that. Please don't think that. But it is Carlos Sainz, who, I mean, it's almost like by default, just ignore that. But what's interesting is the second biggest loser is starting 8th. Yeah, it's this man here, Charles Leclerc. Okay, he got an 8th. He's cost potentially his teammate a chance to get into top 10. It just looks so amateur. The spin, and even Martin Brundle suggested that was on purpose. That was just pure frustration. But it is these. Everyone makes mistakes. The problem is when you look at over the course of a year, a driver of his caliber, Charles Leclerc, makes too many mistakes at the moment to, I think, be a proper World Championship contender. He has the talent, and I'm sure he can do it. Can he handle the pressure? We're yet to see. And it's just these Leclerc mistakes, which he hasn't really gotten out of. So next up, we've got Esteban Ocon. And he's starting 19th. Yeah, I mean, what more can he do? And Tsunoda, I mean, he didn't even make it out, did he? I mean, he had that whoops-a-daisy in practice, didn't he? When he boshed the car, maybe that had something to do with it, but still, not particularly very impressive from Yuki Tsunoda, one of our losers, along with also this man here, Liam Lawson, again, qualified all the way down in 17th, where Hadjar qualified in 9th. is Liam, are we watching the end of Liam Lawson's career? I really hope not. But I don't know. I wouldn't bet the mortgage on it at all. Lewis Hamilton starts 11th. What are Ferrari doing? I appreciate it's not all his fault, but it's still a massive negative on a track that he knows really well. On a track that he's won before. He's had his most epic race there before. So absolutely hugely disappointing. He's up high. Colapinto qualified 16th, considering he's got this new contract, has the discount Senna. You know, I've seen all the memes. He is talented, but he's not consistent enough, and he's been, you know, beaten by Gasly this year. I personally am surprised that he did get that new contract. I'm surprised that Jack Doohan didn't get a fair crack at the whip again. But then you got Flavio Briatore running. Yeah. So Ollie Behrman, a bit of a negative, all the way down to 15th. I mean, the only positive for Ollie Behrman, I think, really, is he ended up out qualifying Esteban Ocon. But I think he's also won a Ferrari Academy driver in a Ferrari engine, screwed by another Ferrari driver by the name of Charles Leclerc. Yeah, he didn't get a lap in as well, I think, because of Charles. So, Pierre Gasly, again, not bad, 13th. I think that's fairly solid for Pierre Gasly. Not bad at all. So we're getting into the slightly positives now. One of them I want to mention, Bortoleto, 14th. Okay, he didn't set the world alight. Yes, Hulkenberg has out-qualified him, but with all that pressure, and I do think in Brazil, because of the whole Senna thing, etc., there's even more pressure. He didn't embarrass himself. He qualified 14th, which I just about think is a positive. Next up, we've got Alexander Albon, finally out-qualifying Sainz, albeit Sainz is kind of handicapped, but he's 12th. And he puts himself in a position in the sprint race where he could get pole position, maybe. I've just seen the Mexican Grand Prix, thing above my head. Absolutely, completely ignore that, if you will. That would be absolutely fantastic. In fact, let's close it. Why it's up there, I have no idea. Okay, so moving on from Alexander Albon. Who is next on the go gravy train? It's going to be Mr. Isaac Hadjar. Well done. You about qualified Lawson. He's doing absolutely what he needs to do. He qualified 9th. Yeah, Lawson 17th. He's going to Red Bull next year, isn't he? Let's be honest. So the man that had pole here all those years ago, Nico Hulkenberg, just about made it to his, I think it is his first time he's been in Q, at least for the sprint, I think in Q3. But anyway, well done, Nico Hulkenberg. Mwah. Excellent. Next up, we've got Max Verstappen. I mean, yeah, qualified 6th. Not what you really expect. Now, I was kind of hoping / kind of thinking at the after the practice session, I thought, okay, as always, Red Bull are going to find something, and they didn't, and they normally do. But I remember all the way back in 2022 at Brazil, they were really struggling to get the setup right, and it's one of the few races where they weren't particularly competitive. And talking about competitive, I mean, Oscar Piastri, yeah, he qualifies 3rd. He's going to be disappointed with that, especially how confident he looked in practice. It's still a positive, though. It's still a positive. It's just that a few drivers, I think, did better than him in terms of where their car is. For example, yes, I'm going to have to eat yum, the humble pie, because Lance Stroll qualified 7th. Well done, Lance. Nice one. George Russell did get out qualified by Kimi Antonelli. He is starting 4th. I don't think that's too bad. He messed up on his first final run, didn't he? He had a bit of a ski whiff moment in one of the corners where it was one of those, oh my gosh, are you going to lose it? No, he just about saved it. And that, on his first one, I think really cost him any chance of beating Kimi. But Kimi has been really good here. Next up, we've got Fernando Alonso starting 5th. Surely points in sprint qualifying. And that stands him amazingly in good stead for the rest of the weekend. Aston Martin looking hot. So, he's at our 3rd place on our driver winners podium. In 2nd, yep, Lando Norris getting that pole. Well done, Lando. I'm not saying it was massively comfortable, but it was enough. And yeah, he rose to the occasion. So easy to go wrong there, as some of the other people did, but he didn't. But the man of sprint qualifying, the man is Kimi Antonelli, the man of sprint qualifying. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, he's not been this high up since Miami. in terms of sprint, where he got pole position. Okay, he didn't get pole here, but he puts himself in a position to potentially win that sprint race. As I've already said, going into that first corner, if he's in the lead, how much is Norris going to fight him? Simply because Norris is ahead at the moment, at the very least, of all of his championship contenders. Could Kimi Antonelli win a sprint? Absolutely he could. I still think Norris is potentially favourite, with the big caveat of as long as he's leading after the first few turns, kind of like Mexico. I think he will, but we will have to see. If I remember last time, Kimi Antonelli did not have a good start at the Miami Grand Prix sprint, sadly. So I hope he has one here, and I hope he gets on the sprint podium. I really, really do. So there we go. That is the grid. We've introduced that. Well done to all of those involved. If you made it to the end, it says Mexican Grand Prix as well. Look at that. Look at that. It does say Mexican Grand Prix. Look at that in the Brazil colours. I'm halfway there. Never mind. If you made it to the end, I just wanted to say thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. If you want to help out and you're not, give us a subscribe. That'll be absolutely amazing. Give us a like if you can as well. That too will be absolutely amazing. But until then, we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much for watching. But above all else, stay safe.